Remember the story of the Emperor's new clothes? In this fable, a king is tricked by unscrupulous tailors into believing that they had weaved him a fantastic new suit, when in fact, they had produced absolutely nothing at all. Because he was surrounded by advisors, who always told the king what they thought he wanted to hear, everyone told the naked king that his new outfit was impressive. Only one character, a small boy who was too young to know that he should only say approving things to the king, blurted out the truth.
He's naked!
Finally causing everyone to laugh at the king's foolishness.
These white streaks are alpha particles.
Wait, what? These white streaks? They're white streaks. That's something that we can observe with our eyes. But making the jump and the conclusion, the leap to saying that it's particles that are unseen is a huge stretch. So let's call them like we see them and hold our horses here, young buddy.
Tiny, fast-moving atomic projectiles shooting through solid gold as if it weren't even there.
Tiny, fast-moving, what? What am I missing here? So let me say this. I'm not suggesting that this gentleman is lying purposefully or maliciously. He's just deluded like the rest of the world in believing these fairy tales of untruth, of unrealities, of pure fiction. So we have a phenomenon that we can observe, that we can replicate. But what is the delusion, what is the lie, is the purported explanation that they want to give you so that you believe what they want you to believe. And you have a skewed understanding of reality which is not based on truth.
Using a cloud chamber, I'm going to reveal the hidden paths of these particles and revisit Rutherford's...
The hidden paths of what? Like, I could be saying that these are invisible unicorns. Tiny invisible unicorns making these streaks. Now prove me wrong, okay? So that's the same exact... I'm being facetious here and exaggerating to prove a point. The point that this is a big, huge lie with no basis in any understanding or reality or logic.
Groundbreaking experiment in a whole new way. In 1909, Ernest Rutherford fired atomic bullets at gold foil.
So now we get drawings. Okay, so you're whoa, wait a minute here. So you're throwing cartoons at me because you want to appeal to my inner child who is very gullible, because childs trust adults. The adults are supposed to know. They're supposed to transfer knowing and understanding to the children. And in this case, we are failing miserably. And the fact that you have to recur to cartoons and drawings of fictitious figments of your imagination just proves my point, because you cannot show them to me because they are not real.
And made one of the biggest discoveries in physics, proving that atoms have a dense...
One of the biggest lies in physics. Say things correctly. And now we get more. This is not even CGI, just more cartoons.
Tiny nucleus. And outside of that, they're almost completely empty space. Last month, I made a...
Empty space. Try putting your head through a wall and tell me it's empty space.
Video recreating Rutherford's famous gold foil experiment. I used my vacuum chamber, some gold foil, an americium-241 source for my alpha particles, and an alpha particle detector. But something was missing. I showed...
Again with the cartoons. So now you're mixing the actual footage with a cartoon because you cannot show me the thing, because you know what? It's not a real thing. So you have to make up fictitious, imaginary, make-believe things that are not true, which are called lies.
The alpha particles can go right through the gold and hit the detector, but I wanted to actually see it happen, or at least see their path right through the gold. So in order to do that, I'm taking a different approach from Rutherford's original setup. I'm going to be using something called a cloud chamber. A cloud chamber uses supercooled alcohol vapor, which is right on the edge of condensing into tiny droplets.
Alcohol vapor. We could dive deeper. And so I invite you, you can dive deeper. Go on and do it on your own. I can dive deeper on another video on why specifically he's using the super cold alcohol. So it may have some electromagnetic properties which render these phenomena.
When a high energy particle flies through the air, it creates a path.
Doesn't mean that a high energy, invisible, tiny unicorn is flying through it. It doesn't mean that. It just means that we're seeing something. What it is, that's a different question. The thing here is, what is the underlying explanation and what is the correct explanation? And I could offer you 10 or 100 different fake explanations, like the one that fake particle physics is offering you every day of the week.
Path of ionized air molecules. These ionized air molecules trigger a chain reaction.
So we need another drawing. Why do we need drawings for real things? If they were real, we wouldn't, right? So use your common sense to see if the emperor is wearing any clothes or not.
Condensing alcohol vapor into tiny droplets. So all you have to do is look for a tiny path of condensed droplets. That's the path that the particle took. Now,
Condensed droplets. Why are they condensing? Then that would be the question. And that would be a fair question to ask. But we would have to dive deeper into it, and not offer fake explanations.
cloud chambers aren't actually that hard to make, but they can be really finicky if you don't do it just right. So I'm using a fish tank for my chamber, with a dark cookie sheet at the bottom to help me see the condensation paths better. To fill the chamber with evenly distributed alcohol vapor, I'm saturating some felt with ethanol.
Felt. That is super suspicious. You know why? Felt, if you've ever rubbed up against it, is going to charge you very quickly with electricity, with electrostatic charge and discharge. So that is super suspicious that we're using a medium and a surface that will charge any object or anything above it, that will charge it with electrostatic energy very quickly, very easily. So I call suspicion on this material.
You can also use isopropyl alcohol if it's at least 90%, but
So the recipe that he's giving, or that anybody can give to make this, is very delicate. Why would it be so delicate? You see what I'm saying? So you're trying to recreate an experiment with a certain set of conditions that are highly controlled. And what I'm saying is that these streaks or condensation vectors, or whatever you want to call them, lines of condensation, are quite suspicious and would not naturally occur. They would only occur within this given experiment. It's a very contrived, artificial set of circumstances that is not real life.
ethanol works a little better. Then I'll stick this to what will be the top of the chamber. For some reason, felt works the best for this. I've tried other materials, but felt gives the best results.
Again, with the felt, electrostatic energy.
Next, I need to seal the chamber. If it isn't sealed properly, I can't get a nice concentration gradient in the chamber. So I'm using sticky tack to seal it completely to the cookie sheet here. Now I just need to cool the bottom of the chamber.
Again, check all the contrived conditions. Very controlled and contrived, unlike what you observe in everyday life.
Fastest and easiest way to do this is to place the whole thing on a block of dry ice. For my radioactive source, I have a small piece of americium-241. It emits alpha, beta, and gamma radiation, but most of it is alpha radiation. About 85% of the particles coming off are alpha particles, while only around 13% are gamma.
What is radiation? We can notice the effects of something, and we can call it whatever we want to call it. We can call it bubblegum, we can call it radiation, but what is it? And what's taking place, and what's the underlying fundamental explanation? That's a different story.
Rays. But that's fine because in cloud chambers, alpha particles leave big, solid, straight lines. But gamma rays, on the other hand, don't make straight lines. They kind of curve and they're really tiny paths. Now let's stick our americium-241 in the chamber and see if we can detect anything in our cloud chamber. So I'm going to place it on the dry ice here and then light up the side with a flashlight. Now look at this. Look at all...
So he has to light it up with a flashlight. Also very suspicious. Now we get to see what's going on, and we get to see these little white lines or specks or whatever you want to call them.
All those particles just shooting off the americium source.
What particles? Do you see any particles? I don't see any particles. If you see any particles, please write in the comments and let me know where you saw the particles. I would gladly chat with you and listen to you on how that happened. I'm seeing a phenomenon. I don't know exactly how to explain it. I have my explanation, but it's not the same as his. The point I'm trying to make here is not, oh, if you don't have a better explanation, then his is real. That's not the case. He has to make a point, or science or whomever you want has to make a case for something. They have to prove it. And if they don't prove it, it doesn't mean that, it's not true. Period. End of story. And you don't have to come up with another explanation right then and there. You just have to say, hey, buddy, you didn't convince me. You didn't prove the point. We'll have to look further. Okay? So it's all right to say, I don't know. We don't know what's causing this or what's going on here. And we have to search some more. It's all right to say that. You have to feel free and at ease saying that and accepting that. We have to be humble and accept that we don't know, so that we might find out and discover and gain truth and understanding. Otherwise, you're going to always be deluded.
Every single one of those streaks represents an atom that just decayed.
Every single one of those streaks is an invisible tiny unicorn.
That means every path you see is an actual alpha particle emitted in real time from a single...
I don't see no particles. I see streaks. What's causing these streaks? At a distance. So, because I don't see necessarily all the path. I just see there's like a little cloud there of different condensations, but I don't see necessarily the entire path or what happened to the particle after the path.
Atom of americium transforming into another element. Look how they're just constantly pouring off this source. It's like it never runs out.
So that's very interesting, the energy, because this is necessarily taking energy. And is it coming from the object in there? Maybe. It looks like it is. So that object would be loaded with an energy that is affecting this behavior and the alcohol.
That's because americium-241 has a half-life of about...
Now, notice that there's a gap there between the americium, purported americium. I don't know if it's americium. He's telling us that it is. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So you have to be super skeptical, and you have to be very much in touch with your inner adult. And don't be a child when you're 40, when you're 30, when you're even 5, or when you're 50 or 100. You have, with these people, these folks, these liars, you have to be very skeptical and super logical. You can see there's a gap here right next to the rod, and then you see the little clouding going on. So if it were purported particles, why wouldn't we see a complete path? And so that's another thing. So in my opinion, and this is my explanation, you don't have to share it, and I'll do some other videos on it, is what's happening is this is acting at a distance. It's having an effect on the alcohol vapor at a distance. So it's projecting radiant energy. And we can look at the Sanskrit roots for all this as well, which is super helpful because the ancients had more knowledge than we will ever have in this lifetime. So for example, radiance in Sanskrit, it has over 20 names for it. Like Shri, which is a very common word, Vasu, Kaman, which also means love. Prabha, which also means a teacher, a master. Bharga, which also means light. So many. Shochis, which is also related to the moon. Sphurita, which is also radiance, but it's also a vibration. Tejas, which also a heat. Ravi, where the word rabbi comes from in the Hebrew. Very interesting there. There's a connection there with the ancient Sanskrit and the Hebrew and the Aramaic. From Ravi, we get Ravi and we get rabbi, whom is a teacher, because a teacher is emitting light upon you and is emitting their radiance and sharing it with you. Radiation, this is going to be more of a new word. That's why you don't have so many ancient Sanskrit synonyms for it. And Radi, it's also very interesting, radii, which is also the half of a diameter of a circle. Very interesting that it's also related to Radha. Radha was the love of Krishna, the other half of Krishna, the very famous Radha Krishna, which is the divine feminine. So let's go back to the video.
About 432 years.
He's saying the half-life of this is 400 and something years. When was this still material even discovered? I don't think it was discovered even 200, 300 years ago, purportedly. So was there anybody alive to claim that they found half of the material 400 years afterward? Again, I call BS all the way.
That means it takes more than 4 centuries for just half of the atoms in this tiny
Yeah, if you've been around 4 centuries to observe that, baloney.
button to decay. So if there's one big takeaway from this, it's to remember that there's lots of atoms in things. The atoms are
Remember the lie. Don't forget the lie. You might stumble upon the truth.
constantly pouring off of this, but it never runs out.
You just said it runs out in 400 years, and now you said it doesn't run out. Get your lies straight, buddy. And again, I'm not attacking this individual. I'm just attacking particle physics, which is complete and utter nonsense.
Okay, now that our cloud chamber's working, let's try putting some thin salt.
Particle physics has been around for ages. It was around with the Greeks. They didn't buy it. It was around in ancient Vedic times too. They didn't buy it. Why? Because it's based on a lie. And they wanted them to believe a lie, and they never fell for it. But, lo and behold, here we are in modern times, and we all fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker.
Solid gold in front of it. Now this part was actually
It's a belief system. It's not based on reality. It's a fanatical belief system. And they make all these crazy experiments like a 3-card Monty where they want you to believe in a magic trick, which is not real.
actually harder than I expected. Gold foil is very thin and it rips really easily.
Them up nice and slowly. All you have to do is point to where the queen is. Of course, the one the spectator points to is always wrong. Then the performer points out that this wasn't fair because there are 3 cards which only have 2 eyes. So he takes one of the 6s and tosses it aside. Now with just 1 queen and 1 6, again, he asks you to follow the queen. This time it doesn't matter which one you point to because they're both wrong. The queen is off to the side. Then the performer makes it super easy by bending the corner of the queen so that it's easy to follow even from the back. Again, the performer asks the spectator to follow the queen, which has the bend in the back of the card. Then he mixes the cards and asks the spectator to point to the queen. This is simple. It's got a bend in it. It has to be this one. Or does it?
We got a setup that worked. To make sure we get an accurate test, I placed the gold foil completely against the floor of the chamber, so there's no way for alpha particles to sneak underneath it. Okay, let's turn off the lights and see if we can spot the
If there's anything to sneak, here's the point. And he's going to prove himself wrong, and he's still going to try to gaslight you into saying that he's right.
alpha particles going through the gold. Whoa, look at that. You can see it. The alpha particle paths are going right.
Whoa, look at that. You can see it. There are no particles. This is acting at a distance because, you know what? This reality, or this dreamlike reality, whatever you want to call it, this matrix, this holographic realm, has certain phenomena that act at a distance. telepathically. So the rod is exuding certain radiant energy, tejas, Varga, or whatever you want to call it, at a distance, acting upon the vapor, exerting energy, radiant energy upon it, which is making it condense at a distance, telepathically. You could even call it teleportation. And it is a real thing, and so is telepathy. These are real things. So crystals communicate at a distance, telepathic, through resonant vibrations that do not require a medium. They don't even require things to move from point A to point B. And that's one of the hugest, allow me that word, made up word in English. These just very important thing is for you to realize that we are accustomed from moving from point A to B. But even so, in our everyday lives, we are blind to the fact that things don't travel. Light doesn't travel. Radiant energy doesn't travel. Just like heat. Heat travels at a distance, unaided. It doesn't need a medium. And it can travel almost teleporting itself. It is telepathic in nature. That's why magnets also act at a distance. Same principle. Because the crystals are in tune to each other at a distance.
Right through the gold. So just like in my vacuum chamber experiment with the particle detector, this shows that most of the space in an atom is empty. And what I mean by that is
There's no empty space.
99.4% of the mass of these gold atoms.
So he has to make up another lie, the lie of empty space, to support his earlier lie of the particles. So it's a lie built upon a lie.
Is concentrated at a single point in the center called the
It's a card trick. It's a 3-card Monty.
nucleus. And what that means is that almost all of the atom is completely empty space. But it's not empty.
And people keep believing the lies.
Most alpha particles fly straight through the atom, knocking off any electrons that get in the way.
There's no particles. There's no electrons. Face the truth.
But every once in a while, an alpha particle gets a direct hit on the nucleus. When that happens, the alpha particle can get deflected or even bounce back. The ability for gold foil to send an alpha particle bouncing backward was the first proof ever that atoms contained a nucleus. So now let's look behind the gold.
The bouncing back is very easily explained because the rod itself can be radiating backwards, or it can be charging the gold foil, and then the gold foil can be charging the other side as well. So super easy to explain.
Sheet. Can we see any alpha particles moving backward toward the source?
I can't
Look,
see any
every
part.
once in a while you see a streak coming from the gold back toward the source. That could be an alpha particle that hit a nucleus and bounced back. So having these alpha particles bounce back like this is actually pretty amazing. In Rutherford's gold foil experiment, when he saw evidence that the alpha particles were bouncing back off the gold, he said it was almost as incredible as if you fired a 15-inch shell at a piece of tissue paper and it came back and hit you.
And if you believe that sort of a lie, you deserve it. So the gold foil is being charged with a radiant energy, and then it's emanating it in turn.
Experiment is so cool. It proves something incredible. The nucleus is real. Atoms aren't
The nucleus is not real.
blobs of charge like the plum pudding model suggested. Instead, they're mostly empty space with an ultra-dense positive
Atoms don't even exist, neither do molecules. Matter is made up of crystals.
charged nucleus at the center. And when an alpha particle collides with one of these nuclei, it scatters, sometimes even bouncing straight back toward the source. This couldn't happen unless there was a nucleus. This was one of the most important discoveries in physics, and it completely changed our understanding of matter.
Yeah, it did. It sure did. One of the biggest lies in the history of fake science and fiction, and corrupting the understanding of humankind for the detriment of humankind. So here we are, guys. Blessed be you. Blessed be the holiest of holies, Jesus Christ. Jeshu Christaya Namaha. Om Yeshu Christaya Namaha. Shri Krishna Vasudevaya Bhagavan Ki Jai. Lord bless you. The Most High bless you forever and ever. Please share this information. Hope to see you again real soon.